Welcome to the 2019 P2P Draft. Let me just get a few things dialed in here so I can't hear myself too much. All right, so, all right, looking at this, pretty sure everyone can hear me. All right, welcome to the 2019 draft. It's been a long time coming. Really excited to be here. Excited to see kind of how everything shakes out and see who ends up number one. I really think Sandoval's got to be up there somewhere, but there's a few decent running backs and wide receivers as well that I'd anticipate being up high. Lots of defensive players as well. But let's go ahead and get the action started. Oh, you can barely hear me. Okay, let me see if I can fix it. Is this any better? Any better? Check. Just let me know if you can hear me. Hear me. Before I kick it into gear. Okay, this better? Everyone can hear me? Sweet. Okay. Good deal. All right, then I think we are set and ready to go. I can adjust this a little bit to fit, and then we'll get started with Arizona. But as long as the stream is working and the audio is working, that's kind of what matters. So let's there we go. All right, so here we go. We're gonna get started. Let's check out what Arizona goes with. It's an AI team, but they should, yeah. See, so we've got cornerback going number one, Craig Diaz out of Maryland. That's kind of a surprising pick, but not too bad. I mean, he's got decent speed. Decent agility. His strength's a little bit low, but he plays the position well. Good intangibles. You know, this is definitely a player that could develop. He's got good endurance, kind of everything you'd need. I mean, his tackling's a little bit suspect in his strength, but strength you don't need a lot on the corner position. He definitely could play really well. You like that competitiveness and work ethic out of the defensive side of the ball. So I actually think Diaz will be a solid lockdown corner in the years to come. So definitely an interesting pick. Not what I expected to go number one, but interesting nonetheless. So that takes us to the Packers. They just had Aaron Rodgers retire, so I'd expect they're kind of on the ticket for a quarterback, but maybe they're not. It'd be interesting to see kind of what they go with. So let's see. We've got Bruce Morton, running back. Ooh, and he's supposed to be the top running back in the draft. Looks like he rated out pretty well. That's a solid franchise level. You know, he's good endurance, knows how to play the position. Good speed and agility. He could get some of that strength up a little bit, but he's young, only 21 years old, out of Baylor. He had a... Oh, they don't show their career here anymore. That's too bad. But he had a decent career out of Baylor, and Baylor's been an annually good program in the P2P college. Decent enough in tangibles, but excited to see how Morton does. over there in Green Bay. Interesting. I mean, he's definitely a good running back and should be solid over there. Don't really see any red flags. His intangibles could be a little bit better, but they're not. They're not anything too bad. So that's a decent pick at number 2 for Green Bay. The Packers going with a running back, which maybe that was a little bit high for him, but Morton's a solid back, and he'll definitely handle the ball a lot and handle it well. So that should be a solid pick for Green Bay. Which brings us to the Browns. Browns don't really have a quarterback need, so that means Sandoval is going to drop a little bit. But let's have a look. And they did take Sandoval. So Norm Sandoval out of Utah. Definitely a solid player. He was part of 3 championship teams. Almost got his 4th perennial winner. He won a lot of games at Utah, threw for a lot of yards. Consistently one of the top quarterbacks in the country since his freshman year. So that's a solid pick. Good intelligence, accuracy, and arm, all of which will develop. And he's got speed to move around in the pocket. Endurance is good enough. He's not quite the leader you'd want maybe out of the quarterback position, but solid work ethic, competitive, and he'll perform solidly for the team. So he's not going to lead a lot of people, but he's going to be a solid player on any team, especially a team that has good leadership. But that's a great pickup for the Browns. Interesting to see what that's going to mean for the Browns' current quarterback, because they've got a pretty good quarterback that they drafted a couple seasons ago. Miller, I think. I can't remember his name. I need to have better notes. But Sandoval looks solid. He's franchise quality quarterback. So that takes us to the Bengals. The Bengals, new human pick and next gen, so he's new at the Bengals, and let's see if he gets something that really can help take the Bengals up a notch next season. So Jamie Dees out of Rutgers, he is a cornerback. Solid speed. That agility is going to need some work. He's fast enough to play in the league, but he definitely needs to improve his agility. He plays the position well. His tackling is going to have to improve as well. But if he can build that agility, he can be a solid starting corner in the league for sure. He's got the speed to do it. It's just that agility needs to come up. Probably around 70. Before I'd consider him a solid starter, but he's only 21 years old, so he's got plenty of time to develop. He's got 6 seasons on his contract, so I'd expect probably about year 3 he'll be solidly starting for the Bengals. But he's a little bit of a project. So that takes us to the Bears, and the Bears moved up, swapped with Minnesota to move up in the draft. Be interesting to see what it is they saw. They've been an annually good team, but they've definitely got some holes that they could work on improving, just so they can kind of overtake and take that next step in the playoffs. They've got Alton LeBron, who's a solid running back that I don't think they're looking to replace, so I'd expect maybe some line help or somewhere in the receivers. They might have been hoping Sandoval dropped to 5, but there still is Duran and a few other good quarterbacks on the board. Lloyd Ferguson out of Cincinnati, Silas Saunders out of Florida. There were a lot of good quarterbacks that came out of this draft, so it'd be interesting to see where they all end up. So that gives us Bears take Keith Schneider linebacker out of Auburn. And that's a solid pick. He's got all of everything you'd want. Good tackling, decent speed and agility. His strength's good. He's just got to work on learning the position, which he should be able to do pretty quickly. That's a solid linebacker that should get playing time immediately. Which takes us to the Chargers. The Chargers, they had a nice run in the playoffs season before last, but they kind of took a dip this season. So let's see if they can get the help they need to step back up. Hold on one sec. I got to sneeze real bad. All right, sorry about that. So that puts us back on the Chargers. Let's see what they take here. So Roscoe Adamame out of Florida State. Solid tackle, good strength. He's a little bit slow, but he's got good agility. He can move side to side pretty well. He's smart. He's got to work on his pass blocking, but he's already a solid player in the run game. But he could improve some endurance. But once he builds up that position skill, I mean, he's got a lot of things you'd look for in a tackle, but he does have a few things to work on. Which takes us to the Broncos. So Broncos take Sergio Barnhart, defensive tackle. Really the only knock on him right now is his endurance. But he's fast enough to play the position. Good size at 337. Decent agility. And he's really strong. So that'll be a solid player once he builds up that endurance. Ugh. Hold on one sec. I gotta pause again. I got something. Okay, sorry about that. So solid pickup brings us to the Raiders. Let's see what the Raiders do here. Raiders take John Fitch out of Utah, tight end. A little bit slow. Could have better agility. He's got the strength and probably the hands, but he'd need to build up his speed and agility a little bit, as well as his blocking. And he's got some room to work in the position. But you know, a couple seasons he could develop pretty well. But he's definitely got some work to do. Which brings us to the Saints. Saints at number 9. Dan Barrows, linebacker out of Utah State. Decent speed and agility. Not quite as good as Gardner, who went first, but pretty good. Just needs to develop a little bit. His intangibles are a little suspect, but not terrible overall. So that takes us over to Seahawks. And let's see what Seahawks do. They've got a new GM coming in. Be interesting to see. You know, they weren't able to get a list in on this one, but they'll be able to on the second round. So let's see. That's a strong safety out of Florida. Sean Young, that's a pretty solid pick. That's a guy that can come in and contribute immediately. Decent enough speed, agility, and strength. You know, he even could slide over and potentially play some linebacker as well, especially in passing formations. Not great leadership or team player, but he's solid intangibles everywhere else. Yeah, definitely solid player, strong safety. Sean Young, strong safety out of Florida. Florida's been returning kind of back to the top after a few seasons down in the college league, but they've been improving now that Wire Forest has kind of been guiding them a little bit, and they should compete for the SEC this season. But yeah, solid pickup, Sean Young out of Florida. Which takes us to a second Bills pick. Or it's Bengals pick. What am I talking about? So that's going to be Donald Cahill, cornerback out of Colorado State. Decent enough speed. Stronger than you typically see. He'd just need to work on his agility, speed a little bit, and his endurance. But definitely, you know, he's got the speed to play the position for sure. Especially the direction this league's going. You know, top end speed from the corner position. You're gonna have fewer people over 90 once the original players retire. So that's solid pick and should develop both in agility and in speed, which takes us to the Ravens, another AI team. Isaac Alexander out of Ole Miss, number 12. So a lot of cornerbacks coming off the board. He's quick, needs to work on his agility. Not quite as strong, but solid enough and good competitiveness. So he'll make up for his lack of strength and how competitive he is. And he should compete for the ball. Decent speed, but he's got to get some agility up. And that's kind of the main knock on him. But he can play long into games with his endurance. Decent enough hands and tackling for a corner. Smart enough to be in the right position. Kind of just really needs to work on his strength and agility. Which takes us to the Jets. Another human team. So that's going to be Harold Harding out of Utah. Another staple out of that. He started 4 years at Utah at linebacker, part of 3 champion. He held down the linebacker position for three championship Utah teams. Played a lot, had a great career. Should continue that by the looks of things in the pro league. Good strength, tackling, speed, and he'll develop a bit in all of them. Just kind of a solid all across the board player. But yeah, good pick, I'd say. He could maybe improve his hands, but other than that, he could play right away. He needs to work on his position skill as well, but overall, great pick. I'm biased. So that brings us back to the Bills. Let's see what the Bills take. Another AI team here through the middle. So that's going to be GERALD DURAN. Set a lot of records at Boise State with his passing. Went for a ton of yards. He's got a great arm. Needs to improve his intelligence and his endurance to really be considered, a top-line starter in the league. You'd probably want that intelligence. It's up around 85, 87. But if he does that and he's able to improve his endurance, he's got a chance to start. And that's a decent chance. A lot of people were thinking Duran would go higher in the first round. So mid-range here, I mean, you can't go wrong with that pick for the Bills. Brings us to the Bucks, another human team. And they take Kenny Hawkins out of Memphis. And that's an interesting pick. Pretty good. Needs to work on his endurance, but he's strong and fast. He can't move a lot side to side, but an edge rusher, you don't really need much agility. He'll be able to catch some of those quicker quarterbacks. And he'll be able to speed around a lot of those linemen, and he has the strength to handle some business with straight up blocks as well. So solid pick for the Bucks there. That's another guy that was kind of thought to maybe be going higher in the draft than Hawkins, but he dropped all the way to 15. That's a solid pickup at number 15 for the Bucks. So that takes us to the Eagles, number 16. And they take a tackle. Good strength. Needs to work on learning the position. And his endurance is really bad, but he could be a solid pass blocking tackle right now. But that endurance is a concern, so he's going to need to get some strength training under his belt, and definitely needs to get some playing time in order to get better playing the position. But that's not a bad pick for the Eagles. He'll develop, and he's got the strength to play. So, he's a project. He's not going to be, kind of right away starting left tackle, but he'll get in the rotation and build up that endurance and his position skill, and should be pretty solid once he does. So that takes us to the Lions, who kind of, they started out pretty rough. They lost Armstead for most of last season. That made, I bumped a button. They lost Armstead, and they kind of had a late season resurgence. But it was a rough season, and this is what they decided to go with. So another defensive end. He's got better endurance. He'll learn to play the position better. His intangibles aren't the best, but they'll improve. He's fast enough, strong enough. Just really needs to work on that endurance. Maybe get a little bit of agility, but kind of anything he develops, it's really once he learns to play that end position in the pro league, he'll be a solid player, and his overall rating will come up. But he can play already. He just needs to get some reps, learn that position, get some practice under him, get through him training camp, and he should be a pretty solid player. So that takes us to the Titans, who I bumped the button on. So who did they select? They selected Marvin Johnson out of UCLA, another wide receiver. That's pretty solid. Good speed and hands. Just needs to work on that agility, but he knows how to play the position at the pro level. He's not the smartest player, but get him on some easy routes, and should be a solid wide receiver in the league. So that gets us to the Texans. Texans take LLOYD Ferguson out of Cincinnati, and he set all kinds of records. I think he threw for like 5,300 yards last season out of Cincy. They've been dominating with the passing game, and that's a pretty solid pick. Decent arm, intelligence, knows how to play the position, good endurance, and he should develop. I mean, he'll get that accuracy up a little bit. Not as fast as you'd like, and not as strong as you'd like, but keep him protected. And I mean, he already could play in the league, and that's a rise. He was slated to go in the 3rd round, if I remember correctly. So it's kind of a reach taking him this early in the draft, but it looks like that paid off because he looks like a pretty solid player. So that takes us to the Rams. So the Rams, we get Herbert Fowler, center, out of Iowa. Solid, decent enough strength. He can move. It's nice to have a center that can move around a little bit. You could even cross-train him to play other positions. He needs to work on that pass blocking ability. But his intangibles are good enough. He's got a decent enough work ethic that he should develop pretty well. Get some of that strength, maybe that pass blocking, get some endurance up, and he'll be a solid center in the league. Which takes us to the 49ers, and they're another team that's newly gotten a GM, so be interesting to see which direction they head. So that's going to be Francis Montano out of Boise State. A little slower, decent agility. Strong enough. I mean, he could improve in that area. Good endurance, but he knows how to play the position. So he's really just got to work on some speed. He's got the agility, but definitely needs to improve the speed. So that brings us to the Steelers. Juan Putnam, another wide receiver. A little slow, but he's got good hands and good agility. He's just really got to work on that speed, but man, if he's a little bigger, he could maybe play tight end. But if he can get that speed up around 80, he should be a solid player. But he's got the other abilities. He can catch the ball. It's just he really has to work on getting faster. So that'll take us to the Panthers. That's Owen Weston, cornerback out of Texas A&M. And he should do pretty well. Good speed, good agility, good strength. Just needs to work on that endurance and, you know, learn how to play the position. But his contract should be a steal. You know, 5 years at just under $2 million a year. He already could play. He already could play at this level for sure. Just needs a little refinement. Which takes us to the Colts, another human team. So Ralph Corey out of Penn State. That's a good pick. Good speed. You know, he could be more agile and work on his endurance, but he's got all the other, you know, he ticks all the other boxes in terms of playing defensive end in this league. Really just needs to improve his endurance, but he's got the work ethic to do it. So get him in the weight room, get some strength and endurance on him, and he'll be a solid player in the league. Which takes us to the Packers, their second pick of the round. Let's see what they go after here. Isaiah Strauss, defensive tackle out of Purdue. Yeah, just needs to work on his endurance. Is strong enough. Big guy, 323 pounds, so he should be solid at clogging the middle. He's got the strength to do it. He just needs to work on his endurance and position skill. Yeah, I mean, speed 56, agility 50. That's right in the range of what you're typically going to see for your defensive tackles. The faster ones might get up to 60, 65, but he's solid to clog the middle, that's for sure. Which takes us to the Cowboys, another human team. Let's see what they end up with. Thomas Sibley, guard out of Texas Tech. It's a solid pick. Good pass and run blocking, good strength, knows how to play the position. Just, you know, as typical with the rookies, needs to improve that endurance and get up to pro level in that realm. But he can already play, that's for sure. Could improve his speed and agility just a little bit, but outside of that, he's got all the skills you look for in a guard, in a starting guard for sure. So should improve, and that's a solid pick for Dallas. That's a guy I kind of expected to go higher in the first round personally, but he dropped all the way to 26, and that's a solid pick at number 26. So that brings us up to the Dolphins. Dolphins, let's see where they go. So Louis Oswald, that's a pretty good pick. Decent enough arm accuracy, all of which will develop. A little bit slow and not very strong, but he's got kind of everything else you'd look for in a quarterback. Just needs some refinement for sure. That the strength would be a concern. I mean, he might fumble the ball quite a bit, but he's not going to be looked to run, and so he's going to have some time to develop behind Shanahan, and he's only 20 years old, so he's got a lot of development time ahead of him for Oswald out of Michigan State. And he's another guy that threw for a lot of yards. And he's kind of the last. Michigan State's been under, you know, they've been under a lot of duress for the last couple seasons. They had their training program was really a mess. And so a lot of players kind of fell apart. And that's probably why his speed and his agility is a bit lower, because there was somebody that was controlling him at one point and kind of messed up the training of Michigan State. So a lot of the players really regressed. So interesting to see, and maybe with some pro league training, he'll improve, especially over there in Miami. They've got a great training program. So he's got the intelligence. He'll improve in his arm and accuracy, and should be a pretty solid pickup. Takes us to the Jags. And this is a guy that has dropped. Dale Hewitt, he was slated on a lot of people's big boards to go kind of high in the first round. Yeah, he looks about the same as the other ends. His endurance is really low, which he's going to have to improve upon to really be considered a starter in this league, but not a terrible pickup. you know, especially this low. I mean, that's a guy that was rated to go higher in the draft. So that brings us to the Chiefs. William Murillo out of Miami, Florida. He's another guy that had a decent career. He's intelligent enough, knows how to play the position. He can move in the pocket. He's a little bit stronger, but he needs to improve his arm strength and his throwing power for sure. His intangibles are a little bit suspect, so that's probably why he dropped this low. He was a consistent starter, threw for a lot of yards in the college league. But he'll be a project, and it'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs handle him and see if he can improve and improve in those areas he needs to become a consistent starter at the pro level. So that takes us to Falcons, another CPU team. So Chad Gill, defensive end, decent enough speed, decent enough strength, not the best intangibles, needs to work on his endurance. Kind of the story of most of the defensive ends, so it'll be interesting to see, you know, kind of the projects and how they develop, especially in training camp coming up. That takes us to the Colts. They got this pick from Washington football team. Let's see what they turned it into. Yeah, good strength, low agility, needs to work on his endurance, but has the strength and speed to play defensive end for sure. But definitely a little bit more of a project. Gonna need to get some training under him before he'll really be successful. But he's got great intangibles, and that'll really help with his development. And Indy's got a good program over there, so he should be in a good situation over at Indy. So that brings us to the last pick of the first round, and that's going to be the Pats, the Super Bowl winners. They came out and had a big upset over Washington football team, and have improved a lot in free agency. So not sure if they have too many needs as it stands right now, but you know, anything they get right now is probably gravy. So let's see what they end up with. They go with John Hauser, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Great strength and actually great speed. So he's going to be a raw player. But yeah, this is what you like to see. 324 pounds, so he's a big guy, really strong, and he's got good speed. So he just takes some refinement, but he's got everything necessary to be a starting defensive tackle in the pro league. So with that kind of concludes the first round. We'll tip it off again tomorrow about the same time and go through the second round. So make sure to get your exports in, and thanks for tuning in, and look forward to checking out some of the discussion of the draft in the Discord. But enjoy the rest of your evening.